leave this on. President Reese, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
This
Okay.
phone's not working. You'll be on open mic the whole night. President Reese.
You want to be able to turn it on and off?
I can like do it too. It starts giving me one.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Dr. Foley, roll call, please.
Yes, please let the record show that 4 board members are present, and Board President Reese is participating this evening via phone.
Thank you. We are going to have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To the republic.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Item 2.1, I move that we approve the agenda as it's presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, questions or comments? Sorry, questions or comments about the agenda? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0.
Vice President Wilson,
Yes?
I would like to take a moment before we go on to the superintendent's report to welcome Dr. Foley as the official superintendent of the Higley Unified School District.
Thank you.
She has been acting as our acting superintendent, and now she is our official superintendent. So this will be her first official superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Reese. Do you have anything else to add?
Nope.
Next up, Dr. Foley, your superintendent's report.
Vice President Wilson and Governing Board President Mrs. Reese and board members, thank you so much. That just made my day. I didn't even realize that, but yes, today is the official first meeting. Let me start with our upcoming events. Do we have our upcoming events? We could slide up first. There we go. First and foremost, we have an important day right around the corner, and we've been working very hard for this very important first day of school for this school year that we are super excited about. You'll notice that we have several board meetings coming up, and you'll also notice that we will be starting our superintendent visits as a team back into the schools, and our very first one is at Santan coming up in August. And so we have lots, and these are just a snapshot of the many events that are happening with back to school, with Meet Your Teacher, curriculum, all kinds of things happening. And so we highly encourage everybody to make sure you have the app, that you check out our website so that you have all of the upcoming events that pertain to you and your family ready to go. Next slide, a big thank you. One of the things that I'd like to share with you as the governing board, as you are well aware, and you've been reading in superintendent's reports and you've been seeing at events, that your entire Higley team from every level of the organization has been working incredibly hard to get this school year started, from cleaning up after storms to everything that goes into getting the school year ready. And every corner of this district has been fantastic. This entire family of a team is pretty excited for the beginning of the school year. So we just want to share with you, we would love to actually go list by list by list, but we would be here till very late tonight of everybody who deserves a thank you. So we just want to share with you from the leadership team on how much we appreciate the entire organization for everything everyone has done to help us make sure that we start this school year off right, and we're ready to go, and we're very excited for this year. So thank you for letting me share that, and that concludes tonight's superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Foley. 4.1, board comments.
President or Vice President Wilson?
Yes.
I echo your sentiments. I love this time of year. I was just looking today on some social media, and I love when the elementary school announcement of teachers goes out, because all the neighborhood chats start going, oh, who has this teacher and who has that teacher, and we're going to have lunch together and this and that, and it's always very positive, and it's just, hats off to our teachers that, year after year make an impression, and then the next generation or the next sibling gets that teacher. It's Higley's a family, I keep saying that. And yes, I have seniors this year, so it'll be a different point of view for me again, going through my senior year ×2 and my last kiddos. So hats off to everybody, though. We appreciate everybody and everything they do.
Thank you.
Vice Wilson, I just wanted to say I love the video that went out. It actually made me a little teary-eyed because it was just so cute, and I'm just so excited that we're starting the year out open and here, and it's going to be a great year.
I also saw the video. It was very cute. I did get to stop by Cooley already today for back to school night. The kids were very excited to be back on campus. There were lots of smiling faces, and they were excited to get their schedules, and I'm sure tomorrow night will be a bustling at all of our elementary schools, and last week was high school. So thank you for all those teachers who participated and were able to help us.
In addition to the gratitude for all the work and some of the headaches that you've had because of weather and getting everything prepared and having the experience of being in the schools and hoping things are working and not having to manage any issues from the teacher front. So I appreciate all the hard work, and I appreciate the work that you put into Canvas, getting a digital upload so that there's digital signatures, and there's multiple kids in the family. That is wonderful. I appreciate the time put into that, and I'm sure a lot of other parents and maybe students even appreciate that as well. And I just wish you guys the best as your day approaches. And for the community, just remember to communicate out there. If there's any issues, reach out to administration, reach out to the board. Let us know what we need to do if there's anything. Thank you.
I just have one last thing, sorry. I received phone calls from the teachers today from Coronado, and I don't know if that's all elementary schools or if that was Sherry or how that was, but that was so nice and so sweet, just inviting, welcoming them back, and I just thought that was such a nice touch, and it echoes her saying that Higley's a family, so it was really good.
Thank you. Mrs. Reach, do we have any requests to speak? All right, moving right along. Oh, Mrs. President, do you have anything to say, President Reese?
No, everyone said everything. We're all excited for the school year to start, and we're ready to go.
Great. Thank you so much. 6.1, I move that we approve the consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.12.
I second that motion.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Did you guys?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Oh, sorry. That motion carries 5-0. Dr. Foley, would you like to say a few things on what we just approved?
Yes, Vice President Wilson, members of the board. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Martin so that she can welcome a couple of the administrators who are in the audience, who we are thrilled to have join our team.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Foley. Good evening, Vice President Wilson, members of the board, our community. As part of tonight's consent agenda, you approved some transitions and new hires within our administrative team. We've got 2 individuals here tonight, so I'd like to acknowledge them. We have Ms. Chrissy DeBono, who is going to be the assistant principal at Cortina Elementary. And then we also have Mr. Brett Vandenberg, who's going to be the Dean of Students at Cooley Middle School. So we'd like to congratulate them both. As all of you have mentioned, I echo that we're excited to start the new year, although I will say this summer went by really, really fast. But looking forward to the new year and all of our transitions and all of our hires. So thank you.
Thank you. On to information.
Vice
Go ahead.
I keep calling you Vice Principal.
That's okay.
I don't know
struggled
why.
with President Reese. I couldn't remember her name, so you're fine.
I just want to say hats off and a shout out to Wholesale Floors. They donated shirts to the whole staff to the tune of $10,000. And they're really cute shirts this year. I love them. And maybe they'll give me a deal on my new floors in my house if I go talk to them. But thank you.
Any other comments? Perfect. We're going to move on to information item 7.1. This is our monthly M&O financial report for both May and June. Oh, you are able to leave. I'm sorry. I forgot to release you. Thank you for being here. Are there any questions?
Vice President Reese, members of the board, I'll just make a quick comment. So this is our unaudited financials for the month of May and June. We still have some payments to be made from prior fiscal year. We do have payments, the approval to make payments through July and August for the prior fiscal year. So after those 2 months, you'll see our AFR, and that will be our completely audited financials for the fiscal year 21.
Thank you for that, Mr. Moore. And we get to see some of that Dr. Foley puts in status every week, so we could see exactly what was going to be coming our way. So thank you for that background information always. It helps to look at the vouchers then correctly.
Are there any questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Moore. We're going to go ahead and move on to 7.2. This is the Special Education Day School Report by...
And this is
Go
our
ahead.
quarterly report for day school special ed. Mrs. Miller is in the audience, and she would love to answer any questions if you guys have questions.
Does
Great
anyone have any
job,
questions?
Ms. Miller.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Mrs. Miller. 7.3, this is the rescue sub-report.
Again, good evening, Vice President Wilson, members of the board. The comment that I have, and I hope Mr. Moore would like, is that we actually spent a lot less than we had anticipated. So that helped in terms of budget savings in the overall picture. If you recall, the board approved a little over 1.2 million, and we only spent a little over 760,000, so that's wonderful. In what you approved in the consent agenda, we are continuing that for next year with ESI. We have a similar budgeted amount. Prices did go up, and as well as the fact that you guys approved back in April our increases in our substitute, not only in our long-term, but our daily rates. So we anticipate that, it'll be an additional cost this next year, but hopefully we'll still maybe realize a little bit of a cost savings at the end.
Thank you, Mrs. Martins. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Martins? Perfect. 7.4, the student data update. Dr. Foley.
Yes, Vice President Wilson, members of the board. Okay, this is an evening that we actually enjoy talking about because we're going to talk about the business that we do, which is teaching and learning and talking about how our kids are doing. And one of the things that we have an opportunity to do every year when there is standardized assessment data is to talk with you about how our students are doing on that particular measure, knowing that that is one data point of many. that we will talk about, but it allows us to see how are Higley students doing in their performance compared to students across the state, which always is important to kind of know. And it allows us to calibrate our own tools. How are our own tools telling us about, there's many tools that we use and there are assessments for different purposes, and we are working very hard to understand those very well. We are fortunate to have Dr. Sue Borzich, who this year is serving as the interim executive director for elementary, and she's also still doing parts and pieces of her student data and assessment. And she's going to provide for us a quick conversation snapshot on how our Higley students are doing. As you know, we took standardized assessment this year. It was a unique year to be standardized assessing, but we did. And we want to share with you some global results, knowing that there are many factors and facets that have to do with how students at any one particular grade level performed. And what we caveat is that please know that we will have global conversations here, but very deep conversations about why and how come and what does this mean and how do we use this data happens at the site and local level. But it's important to step back from an organization to just get a general sense, how did Higley students do in a very unique year on these measures as one piece? And so Sue's going to kind of do a quick little dive for us to see about how our students performed this past year. Dr. Borzich?
President Reese, Vice President Wilson, and members of the board. Excuse me, I forgot to turn my mic on. But President Reese and Vice President Wilson and members of the board, I'm very excited to be able to present to you this year kind of a summary of the district or the state data that our students took during the last school year. As you can imagine, we were a little apprehensive about how this would turn out given the year that we had, but I do want to tell you that we are very excited about the results that we're seeing. Just as a little bit of background, next slide. This year, we worked very hard to make sure we defined what our balanced assessment framework looked like here in Higley, so that we were not assessing for the sake of assessing, but just having purposeful assessment that we could use that data to drive instruction moving forward and to take a look at our trends in multiple ways. So we used the model that the Arizona Department of Education uses on their website, and we actually identified what assessments are in each one of the categories of our balanced assessment framework. Tonight, we're going to be talking about that area in blue, the external summative assessments. Those are the state assessments, the AZM2, AZ Merit, formerly the AZ Merit, next year to be the AASA assessment. And so the results that I'm going to show you this evening reflect that assessment. And as you know, we do have a unique testing situation last year. In addition to not only it being a year of COVID, unfortunately, we did have a change in assessments. AZ Merit, you can go to the next slide, sorry.
Next slide.
We had AZ Merit prior to last year, which in the elementary was very similar to the AZM2, but in the secondary, AZ Merit focused on courses versus a comprehensive grade level exam. So this year when we moved into AZM2, it was a comprehensive grade level exam versus focused on whether kids at the secondary were in geometry or algebra 1 or algebra 2. So it was a little bit different in content. And of course, we had no testing in the year 2019, the prior year. So really, we're looking at these test results almost in an isolated incident because given the dynamics that we had. We had different environments for learning throughout the year, so keep that in mind. We had some remote, some in-person, some a combination thereof. And the environment for testing among groups of students was different as well. We had to bring in our remote learners to take this test because there was no option for remote assessment at the state level. So it does change the dynamics in which students are assessed, certainly. And attendance modifications, of course, then were put in place for those in-person and remote learners. So as a result, we can use this achievement data as a body of evidence, and we've encouraged our leaders to do so to determine launch points for instruction. So in other words, where are our students? Where do we need to start with instruction and move forward? We can also make comparisons to overall state data, which is what we're going to look at this evening. How did we do in comparison to the state average? We can't use this data as a trend over time analysis for the reasons I just spoke of, and because they were different tests. We're also going to move into a brand new test next year. So we'll have some of the same restrictions, but not quite the same as what we have now. So using it for a trend over time analysis is not necessarily the best use of this data. We can't determine growth because we're comparing two different tests, of course, and we can't determine growth over a 2-year period of time at our lower grade levels because we missed taking a test last year. But, and we really can't correlate attendance to be any type of a predictor of achievement due to the fact that we had attendance modifications last year. So keeping in mind kind of what the purpose of that is. Considerations that we'd like to, I think I went one slide too fast. Grades tested. Just to familiarize yourself, for ACM2, we tested grades 3 through 8 and grade 10. For AZ-Sci, which is the science portion of the state test, we tested in grades 5, 8, and 11. And then ACT last year was kind of an anomaly as well. Our 12th graders took the test in the spring, in the fall, excuse me, as a makeup for the test that they missed in the spring. And our 11th grade students took it in the spring at their normal testing time. So once again, considerations, this is a picture in time. We are going to be looking at passing percentage, and that is defined as a combination of proficient and highly proficient. So when the state talks about passing percentage, and once again, this is one assessment and a compilation of multiple assessment practices in our balanced assessment framework. So one of the things I'd like to start off with is a celebration of sorts, because normally when we're giving the state assessments, we are expected to reach a 95% participation rate. That is part of our school grading algorithm and an expectation at the state level. We really worried a little bit about whether we were going to make that 95% this year. And while that wasn't a requirement, while the state eased up on that requirement and was not going to use that as part of any school type grades because they've suspended school grades, we still considered it a goal of ours to reach that 95%. So the first slide here shows you our school-wide participation for English language arts. At the elementary, we tested an average of 97.88% of our students across our schools, and in secondary, 89%. 82% of the students who did not test were our online students, of course. So I thought that was a great celebration. You see some of the same percentages or similar percentages in writing, 97.56 at the elementary level, 90.5% at the secondary level, and 78% of our students who did not test were our online students.
Can I just ask a quick question right here? Did we make our online students aware for coming into this school year that they will be testing in person and that this will be a requirement?
And Vice President Wilson, one of the challenges is that this was not a rule Higley did. This was a state standardized assessment rule that required this. And obviously, if there were families who chose not to bring their child to in-person learning, so they were not going to bring them into the in-person environment to test them, and that is within their purview to do. So we will make them aware of that. However, obviously, those were some of the challenges we were working through in this environment this year. And may persist next year with them understanding that.
Thank you.
And once again, in math, very much of the same percentages, 97.85% tested in elementary, 90% in secondary, and about the same percentage of students, 82%, who did not test were our online students. Nonetheless, a celebration for getting that many students into tests. So let's break it out. Remember, this is an overview. We did break it out by school. Each school has a distinct color in the same order on every slide. The red line across the middle of the slide represents where the state passing percentage is. In other words, those students that were proficient and highly proficient. And as you can see on grade 3, English Language Arts, every single one of our students, every one of our schools had average passing scores higher than the state passing average.
Vice President Wilson, members of the board, it's an interesting point to know that third grade remains one of the very few grade levels with a high stakes association with the assessment, the move on when reading. This year, the state did not stop the requirement for the move on when reading expectation, but we're happy to share that within the level of the law, we were able to work with all of our students who may have been subject to retention to receive additional support this summer so that they can continue next year. So we're really grateful that, and it's just important to note that that's still a piece that's connected with third grade in Arizona at this time per legislation.
In grade 4, English Language Arts, the state passing percentage was 44%, and you can see that we, all of our schools are well above that. Grade 5, the passing percentage was 45%, and once again, we exceeded that at all of our schools. And then grade 6, the state passing percentage was 35%, and we exceeded that as well. Now switching over to middle school. In grade 7, the state passing percentage was 38%. And once again, both of our schools are above that. Grade 8, state passing percentage 35%. And grade 10, the state passing percentage was 32%, and once again, we are above that as well.
Can I ask a quick question? Are you guys going to break down the data or use the data to compare online or remote versus in person as far as the data goes? Is there going to be any difference in approach to that at all? Like, did you notice any differences? Did you look at that data at all?
We did begin to look at that data, to be quite honest with you, but as students moved from online to in-person and from in-person to online throughout the year, that became more difficult to measure because it was more difficult to define what an online student was. Sometimes we had online students that stayed online all year long. Sometimes we had online students that were in person for a certain portion of the year and went back and forth. So it became a difficult measurement to define. However, each one of the schools has received a workbook, an Excel workbook, that breaks down this data and gives them the opportunity to use multiple filters to break it down by various subgroup categories so that they can identify then within their own school community where they might have gaps and where they might launch for instruction for this year.
Board Member Wilson, Board Member Wilson and Board Member Anderson, those are critically important, those pivot tables that allow us to go down, because when we're looking at these as a whole, we're looking at averages. Those pivot tables allow us to drill down with other filters to identify specific patterns and trends so that we can look at things like why and explore things a little bit more. And that is one of the things that we spent some time at our admin retreat with our leaders on, and that they will be bringing back to their PLC groups as well. It's a data point, but there's some interesting patterns and trends that we can see much easier in those pivot tables that are a really nice resource that our department puts together for us.
Yeah, something we've noticed, at least in our district, is just there are gaps, and then you worry about the proper placement of these students in the. And I know you guys know that, but that's definitely a concern for the students.
Indeed.
So moving on to math, I think you'll see some of the same patterns. This is grade 3 in math. The state passing percentage was 36%, and once again, all of our schools surpassed that. In grade 4, the same, the state passing percentage was 34%, and our fourth graders did quite well. Grade 5, the state passing percentage was 31%, and most of our schools surpassed that. We have unique situations at each one of our schools, as you can well imagine, so taking a look at breaking down that data is critically important for them to determine kind of where those gaps might be. And then grade 6, the state passing percentage was 29%, and our students well exceeded that state average. Grade 7, the state passing percentage was 30%. Grade 8, the state average was 26%. And finally, grade 10, the state average here was 26%. So while we always have room to grow and we always have room to improve, it was very exciting and very nice to be able to see that we maintained that practice of making sure that our students score above the state average. The science test that was given this year to our 5th, 8th, and 11th grade students was a field test, so meaning that they took what they thought to be a comprehensive test and took about 2/3 of that as sample questions, if you will, and gave that to all of our students. When they do a field test, they then bring back all of the data, tweak the questions, tweak the test as they feel it needs to be tweaked, and then they will launch a full and final science exam for this year. We do not get data, nor is data available when they do a field test on a standardized test, so.
Sorry, I just have one question, and if I missed this, I apologize, but is the state average for this year lower than normal, or is that the state percentages? Or is this always 35%?
Board Member Schultz, it is a little bit, it's hard to say, and I'll be quite honest with you, because we didn't have a test in 2019, so we don't have any averages to pull from 2019, and then the year before that, it was a little bit of a different test, so I really can't comment on whether they're higher or lower than they have been in the past.
But we can speak to general trends. Historically, the state average is about there. When you look back over multiple years of AZM2, the state averages tends to be lower. You're taking it across the entire state. It tends to be on the lower side. Higley has historically always performed quite well when compared to the state average.
Dr. Foley, when will parents get the data for these tests?
Question.
I can speak to that, Vice President Schultz. Thank you for asking. We just sent out the paper reports for 3rd grade students. You should actually have those, or you should be handed those sometime the first week of school, if they don't have them ready for you, even when you go back to the open houses. Because we delayed the testing window into mid-May to accommodate all of our online learners last year, the paper reports for students in grades 4 and above are delayed a little bit. They're due to ship to our district on the 24th, so as soon as we get those, we will get those out to schools so they can be distributed.
So it's okay, parents, I know you're used to it for back to school night, that we normally get the paper copies, but we're not getting them, so make sure to take note that we will be getting them in folders and backpacks, which is kind of scary.
And finally, I'd like to just share with you the results of our ACTs Exam 2. Now, this first slide is the grade 12. Once again, the students who took it in the fall, who were making up their spring tests that they didn't get to take. The red line, the arrow facing up, gives you a national average. We don't pull a state average we didn't this year because it wasn't a mandated test. So not all students had to take the ACT, which skews your state results a little bit, but on a national average for all students who did take the ACT, the national average was 20.7, and you can see how that plays with that red arrow there in the middle of the chart. And then for our 11th graders who took it this last spring, the national average is the same. ACT does not differentiate between school year tests, so those given to 12th graders and those given to 11th grade. All tests administered in the same year have obviously the same national average, so that's why you see the same average for them. So next year, we will be going and taking a new test. It's called the it's AASA, Arizona, I can't even remember what that stands for. But it's a little different from the ASEM-2. I have been told that in terms of targeting student growth, that we will have projected growth percentages for next year because it is still based on the state standards and mastery of the state standards, and that has not changed. Next year, the state will not be giving state assessments other than the science assessment to high school students. The high school students in grades 9, the cohort for grade 9, will be required to take the ACT Aspire, and students in grade 11 will be required to take the ACT as a mandatory assessment. And as for progress monitoring, I'm happy to report that we have benchmark progress monitoring standardized tests in place in our district. We look at those to measure growth for students throughout the school year, and we also have, as Dr. Foley had mentioned, our formative assessments and practices in our PLCs that also help drive day-to-day instruction for our students. So we're glad to report that those are in place, and we will be administering those with fidelity this year. Oops. So to close, I just want to reiterate that Higley is on target. Through our PLC and structure, we have processes in place to identify our gaps, determine root cause, to identify students in a wider range of learning for this year, and to adjust our instruction accordingly so that we're meeting the needs of all learners. Any questions?
I just want to say well done to the students, to the teachers, to families, to guardians, everybody out, administration. Like, that is good data for considering the year.
It's really good.
And thank you for putting that together. Appreciate that.
Yes, I always think we can look at numbers, but all these numbers are tied to little human beings. And, last year was rough on them as well. And so I'm grateful that we did so well. I think that I'll go back to just saying I supported opening our schools and staying open. And I think that played a huge part in how well the year did go. So hats off again to everybody that made this happen. And thanks for, again, I loved your PowerPoint, so easy to kind of navigate and read. I know this data does get put into data walls and rooms and spreadsheets, and then they're tied to a little human being. So hats off to all those little human beings that they worked hard. They did well.
Great point. A board member, Kaler. They are tied to a little human being, and that has had a very rough year. So, any other questions?
I was just going to say, sorry, I don't want to take time, but that is a great point to the human beings, and I don't think the students realize, they always ask, why are we taking this test? Why? What does it matter? And then they don't realize the discussions that are going into play to make sure that their experience is just, what's the word I'm looking for? That it matters, that it's productive. And so thank you for reminding us that it's those kids that are doing a lot of the work that have put this out there.
And the teachers too, who have taught these little humans that, even in a pandemic, and they're getting above average state test scores, which is crazy. So thank you. We're going to move right along to item 7.5, if there's nothing else here. This is Dr. Foley with the Administrative Handbook.
Yes. Vice President Wilson.
Sorry, Administrative Retreat, not
It's a
handbook.
little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. It's
Okay,
a
a little
show and
both.
share
I'm like,
both.
wait, I thought, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Vice President Wilson, members of the board, I'm excited to share with you just quickly a snapshot into 3 days that were spent with your leadership team, and I really want to show this for a couple reasons. We spent a lot of time together as a governing board with your leadership team talking about our strategic initiatives and plans this year, and I'm excited because I want you to see how the work that we started talking about is already beginning to foundationally build, grow. By no means are we done, but you're going to see how a lot of the time and work we did is already beginning to be infused and it's coming together. And we just want to do a quick show and share because we're proud of the work we did together and we want to show it to you. So like I said, we had 3 days with our entire general administrator team. So that means every leader in this district, whether they're a principal, assistant principal, a director, an assistant director, if you're responsible for leading a team, you are part of this leadership group. And I will tell you, one of the things that I'm so proud of is I believe that the work that we had to do together last year as we were literally building the plane as we were flying it, created a team that is really cohesive and works well together in the fact that we don't worry about hurting each other's feelings. We get real and we talk and we get down and dirty, and we created an environment where we talk, where it's okay to share your thoughts and opinions and to create things together. It is rare to be able to do the kind of things that we were able to do together with the group this large. And you'll see one of the products we created out of this. But over the 3 days, we dug in deep because, again, previously last year, our admin retreat was done virtually as we were trying to figure out how to start the school year in a platform that nobody had in elementary grades had familiar with virtually. This year we were in person, and we did this at the Park University. The city partners for us for a free opportunity to go there and use their spaces. We started with an overview of the handbook, which I'll show you in a minute. We created this as one of the things we talked with you about is processes and procedures and having a place to go. And everything in this leadership retreat, the final formal copy lives in this, and this is a living, breathing document that we're going to be working on and sharing all year long with our admin. So no longer are they searching in their email, okay, who sent that? Oh, mom sent that. Now, when did she send that? February? You're not looking in your email to find something. You have a place to go, and I'll show you in a moment. So we started with, here's where it is, here's where it lives, and know that this is where we're going to always put things, and when we have meetings, our agendas are here. This is intended for admin only. It's through Canvas, it's through their user login, because we also put training information and accountability pieces behind that. We talked with them about the governing board initiatives. We talked with them about some core values, and I'll show you some work that we did together, because literally over 3 days, this was a conversation that we built on spending over an hour every day talking about what this means to us and how are we going to lead by example as a team of leaders in this district. What does this mean to us? Which is really part of the start of helping with our updating of our strategic plan, because you align all of this to this work, because we want our values, which we'll talk about here in a minute, to walk the halls, not just be documents that are on the walls. So we also did some required training, annual required training that we needed people to have. And we brought special trainers in. We worked with the trust. We worked with others to bring experts in to do Title IX training. And we had to work around those presenters, but we got a lot of people in and did a lot of training. We then had breakout sessions in the afternoon in that first day where we talked about public relations and the resources that are being created and our branding and our communication structures. And we talked about bond information, what you can talk about, what you can't talk about, what you can do, not do, and shared our resources. We then had a session for emergency plans where some of our new leaders got digging. I mean, James Walker led with Jillian. Here are our updated plans. Here where these are going to live. Here are our expectations. Here's what we're going to do together. Here's still the work that we have to do. And so we spent some time in that, and then we talked about deep dives with data. What is our data telling us? What is this testing schedule this year? What are our expectations? So that was day one. Next slide. Day two, we started at new teacher orientation to welcome and greet our new teachers who were in the room, who were precious. I will tell you, one of my favorite things about this is we were supposed to start like 8:15-ish, because we allow them to come brand new teachers are there right and bright and early, you know, check in, 7:45, they're ready to go, all here. So we even started early with them. We started with our new teachers, and then we slid over back to our admin retreat, where we went deeper with core values, which we'll talk more about in a minute. Well, then we had our procurement person come in and talk about what you can and you cannot do. And she's a consultant and a CPA who basically laid down the law. What are the rules for those of you who now have a budget? What can you and can't you do? What are the rules? What are the expectations? What does the district do? What do you need to know? We then talked about our budgeting process and how we monitor that and what we're going to be doing this year with our leaders who are responsible for budgets and our expectations. We talked about our updated processes, our field trips, travel, professional leave forms, what are our club expectation boosters, responsibilities, and all those things that are important to get the year going. And food. Food is fun, but we had to talk about what are the rules around food and food trucks and all those other things. Then the afternoon, we went deep. We talked about special education. We talked about 504 processes. We talked about some of the handbooks and expectations. We also started talking about MTSS, which is those multiple tiers of support. And you've been reading about that in your status and how important that is, and how we're going to begin to use our dashboard and tools to help us make sure we're documenting and responding appropriately for all of our students. And then we talked about PLC best practices. We've been working so hard on PLCs over the last several years, even in the middle of a pandemic. And we talked about what are our target takeaways this year with our leadership teams. What are we prioritizing? What does that look like? How do we help support you? And the work that our district team is going to be doing to help support administration and their focus with their teams at their schools. So that was day 2. Then day 3, we came back and started talking more about strategic planning and core values. And this is where I love it, because we had to monitor and adjust because we had overplanned. And the beautiful thing about a team who feels comfortable sharing their thoughts, they shared their thoughts. And we were able to work through creating a core values document, which I'll show you here in a minute. But it was created with the team, by the team, that will help lead the work around this, which is very important. Human resources, Mom provided a whole lot of updates, and we talked about our evaluation process and new things in the HR world that she needs her team, everyone in the room to know about. Of course, anything and everything we talk about is living and breathing in the administrator handbook. We talked about discipline, data, our processes, and some of the work that we'll continue doing. Obviously, there is a lot of work to be done, and we want consistency throughout how not only are we recording it and reporting it, responding to it, and the process that we're going to work on updating. What I think our administrators walked away with is, wow, we have a lot of processes and procedures we need to be working on, and we're going to be updating and doing together. But in the meantime, we started compiling and creating a resource for everyone, which was essential and needed. We talked about seclusion and restraint, and we talked about those processes that surround that, and we also then had our annual CPI training where our team helps train to make sure that in the event that you have a student who needs to help be subdued, how do you do that and what is the process for that? So again, we had 3 very busy, action-packed days with our team. Next slide. Okay, so I'm gonna have you let go of I'm going to have you let go of these slides, and I'm going to take over because it looks interesting. In the admin handbook, we have it, there's 2 ways that our team can get there. They can go through the student side, or they can go through the staff side, but it is all administrators have their own unique key, and they log into Canvas. So right now, I'm alive and well in the Canvas page. So when I go into my courses, there's everyone who is an administrator who should have access to this has their administrator manual. Now, you'll notice, I'm gonna just click over our governing board initiatives. First of all, this is kind of like the table of contents where you will, if you will. But when I dig into the guts of this is a beautiful thing because, and again, I'm just going to show you, every one of these things has PowerPoints or videos or trainings beneath it. Like I'm going to just show you, this has handbooks inside handbooks. For instance, when I'm talking about the Special Education 504, it is its own little handbook. You might have a hard copy, but you also now will have the most updated electric copy at all times. So it isn't so, because you and I both know the minute you you print a piece of paper, it's outdated if you have to update it. All original documents will now live here. But I'll show you when I scroll, take a look at how our admin handbook and our processes and procedures that we are beginning to put together, we didn't have anything like this as a district. In the same place, it might have lived somewhere in a shared folder. It may or may not have been the most updated, but it didn't have the policies or the things the administrators need. So we've started to create, again, as you can see, a start of lots here. And I just want to show you that this is, again, by no means are we done, but what we're beginning to do is get organized and have the administrator handbook in a place for our team with tons of resources, and you can see I'm still going. So a lot of work your leadership team put into this and will continue to put into this, but this is now, if we were to print everything that was in here, it would be very, very
Dr.
large.
Foley, I really like this because I think there's a way to search this a little easier.
Yes.
Instead of having to dig through maybe a giant
Here-
handbook of a book.
And here's the
There's
beautiful
probably a
thing.
search feature, I would assume, somewhere
There
on this, and
is.
probably within each of these
There
documents, there's a
is.
search feature.
These are the categories that take you to your section.
And so I think this is like very awesome that we have this ability to be able to search for, keywords that you might be looking for, because you don't know where something might lie.
And the beautiful
so
thing
this
is,
awesome. Thank
when
you.
when we have our administrators come to our meetings and we talk about it, we'll have it here, we'll show where it is, we'll model it, talk about it. And so that way, you're not searching your inbox for that or wondering where it is in a shared box. And this is really, it's standalone, it's separate from, you enter it in through this is a learning management system, which is where we're holding our ad. So we're actually modeling for our admin what we are working on with our classroom students. This is like a course, a class. This is the administrator manual, if you will. So it's in its starting phases, but we want to show you because we worked really hard on this and we were really proud of it and it was well received. So that's one. Now you can go back to the PowerPoint. Thank you. So we show slide. You can keep going. Again, how these were our slides when we first introed them with our admin. We said, this is where you go. Now go there with us. Let's show you what's there. So again, I bring this up here because when you look at the agenda of the work that we accomplished with our admin team, I want you to see that the foundational work of what we've talked about as our priorities this year are happening. We're starting the initial foundation of our work with our strategic plan. And obviously we've got stakeholder groups and many multiple things that are coming, but we've started those foundational piece with using our leadership team as a compass to help set some core values that we're going to work and align with. We are working on our safe return. We talked a lot with our team about the social emotional. We're going to be creating a task force, a task team with our admin and teacher teams to begin building our Higley resources for this and then continue to build on in multiple years. You will see that we talked an awful lot about our technology. We talked about our data. We talked about teaching and learning and our use of PLCs. And you can see one of the things we talked about is processes and procedures. We're beginning to refine and define, and our handbook is our Bible, if you will, of where these things are beginning to live. So I think what's important to see is we're just beginning this year, but a lot of foundational work that we will build on this whole year is in place that we're excited about and makes it very relevant in aligning the work that needs to be done is aligned here. So,
Dr. Foley, this is fabulous already. Just knowing that we worked so hard on these initiatives and coming up with them and talking about them and believing then, and we've done this every year, believing that they were being, brought forth, and knowing now they will be is phenomenal. Having that, I just seen on the canvas, you had the initiatives right at the top, core values at the top. If anybody needs a refresher, they're right there. They're going to be right there every time they open the page. And so when that permeates through our administrators, it will get down to our teachers, and I just know that. And I'm so thankful to see how you've implemented this. Hats off.
Your entire team has worked very hard, and we're real proud of it. And we're looking forward to continue building it, and we work with our team to refine and improve the processes in there together. So this is a great start. So thank you for that. So then we spent some time with our why with our team, which is why are we here and who are we and how do we ensure that we don't just talk it, we mean it. And how do we create that environment with our entire entire team. So we started with this little golden circle of the why, and we talked about values, who we are as a team. And we started, next slide, defining them with our team. When we talk about values, those are those motivational behind the purposeful actions. Why are they important to us? So we started talking about who are we as Higley and why are these important to us? Next slide. We did talk about, again, the fact that we don't just want a pretty document. We want to start talking about how are we walking our talk, and what would that be? Next slide. And we talked about the fact that these are those things that are those daily commitments we make to those we serve. And so we started with a self-reflection first to say, okay, leaders of Higley who have been selected to lead this district, what do you think is important? And we said, because we're going to, strong, effective organizations that have strong core values, define them by what they mean by them, and then they describe what does that mean, and how will you implement that. But you don't just do it to people, you build it with them. So at first, we used the Mentimeter, where we do the wordles, where people started putting their words in when they thought about what are their values. So we went, now the more times values were a certain word was entered, the bigger, bolder it became. But when you look at that, with 60 people in the room, you go, we have a lot of words. So we have a lot of words, and a lot of those words are saying similar things. So what do we mean by this? So we did a little TED Talk, or we got a little bit from Simon Sinek, who was the same person who defines this. We watched this a little bit and said, okay, Simon says that values are essential because those values plus the behavior define the culture. So who are we as a culture in Higley, and what are those words that we want to define around? Because we don't want to just use these words, we want to embody them. So the next day, teams began talking a little bit more, and as a group began identifying these core words that they thought were the 4 most action words. These are the words that embody the other words. So we took a look at that we took every single word that was here and came back day 3 and said, we have some themes here, because the other thing Simon says is, you can't have a whole lot of, you begin to have words that are saying the same thing. You're saying between 3 and 5. So we said, okay, Higley, let's talk about our core 4. So this is though where I think the power of our leadership team came soaring through, which would be very hard to do in a regular group of 60 people at all levels of leadership organization. We began to debate and discuss, because we were going to say, okay, if these are our emerging themes that were bold, you like them or not? And after hours and lots of conversation and deliberation. Now, our PR team, and thanks to Curtis, has made this far prettier. This was the original document that we finalized and got everyone's input on. But we came up with our core 4. Integrity, connections, learning centered. We talked about integrity, it was a big one. That was a theme throughout. And we defined, what do we mean by integrity? What do we mean by that? And if that's what we mean by that, what are the actions individuals do to be part of contributing to that? One of the words on there, it was interesting, created a lot of conversation and topic and deliberation and debate. And the word on there that people were concerned about putting on there, but then it ultimately came to consensus, it has to be on there, was accountability. You'll notice that that wasn't an emerging theme at first. And we all started talking about the fact that this was important and we needed to help define, because a negative connotation is not what we mean. What we mean here is being committed to a standard of excellence, following through. It's not enough to just have good intentions and to try hard. We have to be accountable and have outcomes and work toward it. So you will see this team, this administrative team said, no, this is what we value and what is important to us as leadership teams, and how we will define this together as part of who we are and how we will walk the halls and lead our teams in Higley, and how we will organize around. And we feel that, you know what, those fit very nicely with what came out of our strategic initiatives too. Obviously, what we do and how we do it matters. How we can't have relationships without connections, and we talked about these values transcend every individual throughout our organization, regardless of what your job title is. Learning centered. We're not only, yes, we're about students, but we're also about adults as well, and on continuous ongoing learning. But how we defined accountability, there was such rich dialogue that happened in that room, and I think we were real proud of the who and what we were. So I took just a few pictures on that last day, again, going very deep into what do we mean by this? And in a large room, having large discussions saying, I don't agree with that. And regardless of, again, and you'll see there in the front of the room, one of the things we had our team do that we're going to go deeper with is a SWOT analysis. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our opportunities? What are our threats? And those are color-coded there in the middle, and we really are going to go deeper into those. But, you know, when we talk about who are we, how do we get better, it starts with living and aligning to our values. So again, a lot of work went into those 3 days and a lot of productivity, and we're real proud of our team and we're ready to get this year started. But it's just the beginning of great work that we're going to look forward to doing together as a team. Any questions? Good. Good.
Great job.
Thank you. We were very excited. We left mentally exhausted, but proud of who and what we do together in Haley. So,
Dr.
and excited
Foley?
about the year.
Did you happen to do a survey of the 3 days to the staff and what they thought compared, I mean, did we do that?
We have not formally submitted that out. We received lots of informal information. We received lots of informal information. We have not sent out the official, give us your feedback, but we are going to do that. We literally have not had a second to. But one of the things we talked about was we received a lot of unsolicited feedback going, liked this. What we heard was, wow, this is a lot of information. What we heard also was, this is too much. And we said, we know, we understand. We also realize we are catching up from not having the ability to do this. And now we're really on the track and we're going to figure out how to do that. So we will get some additional feedback.
And did you know, or did you hear, was there enough time for them to kind of gather this and prepare for them to go into their back to teacher information?
One of the things.
The only thing I heard is some had wished it was sooner.
Yes.
But I know we were still, recuperating from other things. But moving forward, maybe if we were doing this as a yearly event, we would just have it a little bit sooner so they have more time to process it, to take it back to their campuses. That's the only thing I heard. And it wasn't negative, it's just the way it is.
The timing. Well, and I think that there's a lot of infrastructure that we were working to put in place that now exists. In other words, we were building our handbook and putting some of these in. Now that some of those things are in there, we can differentiate. So brand new administrators, our introduction to you in a handbook doesn't need to take as much time with the whole group. We update you with the more recent and current things. So I believe that our ability to do that will only be easier in the future.
As I look at like day one agenda, I have to say, there is a lot of stuff on day one agenda. That could be a 3-day on just day one agenda.
Well,
and I think each one of those I could say that same thing about. So good job, admin, who were able to digest all of this and drink from the fire hose that we have now given them.
It was, and I think what we're talking about is this is the foundational piece. That it was almost like the intro to the chapters that we're going to now go deeper in. But there needed to be an overview to get going. The timing is always tough, and this one was truly catching up. I mean, we haven't been able to do something like this in a while, and it felt really good to be in a room all together. And one of the nice things about the Park University is it has breakout rooms that have some really unique furniture. So to be able to break out, we worked to customize the information in each of those sessions. So we had elementary together, we had secondary together, we had district admin together. So as they went through each of the sessions, we customized what you needed to know for your area for this topic, which again really helps. We try to differentiate a little bit more, and I think we'll be able to do so more easily in the future.
President
Vice
Reese,
President Wilson?
go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I'm impressed with the amount of work that they were able to do on the administration handbook and all the training and all that information. That's a huge undertaking, and they got so much done and started, and we've been asking for a long time for something. So I just want to say I appreciate everyone's hard work. I know there's still work to be done, but it is an amazing start.
Thank you.
Dr. Foley, when we hire a new admin, are they given like maybe just a quick run? Like if we had to hire an admin mid-year this year, is there a way that we can give them like a quick, I know it won't be a 3-day onboarding process, but a quick run through of this so then they can, like just something to think about in the future, some way to onboard them, at least so they know how to log onto Canvas, where this is, how it's all going to show up for them.
And Vice President Wilson, I think one of the nice things too, being that this is a living, breathing document, once upon a time it would have been, oh, I need to go back and copy the agenda for you. Oh, I need to help find these documents for you. Now everybody knows where to go in the most recent form, because even administrators who'd been here a long time go, I don't know how to do that. I need you to show me where's the how-to on that. And so we're going, add it to the handbook. So now we have a one-stop place to go that will be easier to do a quick overview on board and make sure everyone always has access to the most recent information. And we can continue to add sections that we need to as the year evolves. I mean, one of the things we have learned is that life happens when you're busy making other plans, and then you need new resources to address whatever came up. And this would be the place that we would put that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment. I love that this is an organic and intentional meetings of the administration, because you're going to find these words. These are not new words, but you find them in classrooms or in the syllabus or on the walls, and we expect the same thing of our students, and it's just been said for years. And you guys just didn't read a book and say, these are the things we should focus on. You came together. And then, you use the word accountability, and that is scary. And it's good to hear that word from the administration. And then I've through trainings and we've used accountability and ownership. We've gone back and forth, and that's what it is. So it's going to be good for your staff and your students and the parents to see the amount of work and the coming together for this. This is fantastic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And doing that, everybody.
We are blessed with an amazing leadership team, and it took a team and coming together, even new members of our team, start officially in July, helping to build something to turn around and train with, but then as a foundational part that we'll build with them on. So I think that we have such positive things in our leadership team, and I'm proud of them all. So thank you for your positive feedback to our entire team, because this took an entire team, and we're proud of them.
Thank you again. We're going to move on to item 7.6. And we have a bond update, and I would assume from Mr. Moore.
Yeah. Thank you, Vice President Wilson and members of the board. I've lost track what update we are on for the bond, but yeah, we are bringing a informational update to you. And just to remind you, the governing board, that after the board voted to authorize the resolution for the bond, the district enters into these election guidelines that I'm going to go over today. And so when I'm going over these are guidelines that we are going to be following up until the election. So Arizona law states, specifically statute 15511, prohibits persons acting on behalf of a school district from using or spending district resources, including the use of expenditure of monies, accounts, credit, facilities, vehicles, postage, telecommunication, computer hardware, software, web pages, personnel, equipment, materials, buildings, or any other thing of value of the school district for the purpose of influence the outcome of the election. So in essence, we need to communicate in a manner that is impartial and neutral as district officials. whether that be the governing board, administration, or school district employees, teachers, custodial staff, et cetera. Next slide. So there are some things that we can do as district officials. So some of the permitted activities, excuse me, we can distribute informational reports as we're doing today with factual information concerning the election. We can respond to questions about ballot measures in the content that's neutral and factual in manner. District officials, including governing board and administration, can act in a private capacity on their own time, using their own resources in PACs, political action communities, advocating for or against the proposed bond. We are also permitted to place campaign signs on private vehicles, permitting that they're not parked on district property permanently. Okay. Prohibited activities, pretty much everything above and beyond what I just mentioned. Again, we cannot spend or use district money, accounts, credit, equipment, on anything to influence the outcome of this election, acting as a district official. We cannot use students as messengers of election information in any way. We cannot use the authority of your position to influence the vote or any subordinate employee. And we can't place campaign signs, banners, stickers on district property. What we have done and what we've worked with the PR team, and they've done a great job, is we've done our best to get as much information out to our public as possible. We have utilized our website, and our PR team has created this lovely one-page handout that kind of really just highlights the major points of our proposed bond. And I think Dr. Foley is going to
I'm going to take over.
walk us through our website.
If you will transition back to our website. Thank you. So one of the things you'll notice, we're on our homepage, and it's a little delayed here, but is it showing on your screens? Okay, good. It's a little delayed here on mine. One of the things that you'll notice is that we are no longer COVID capital here. This used to be the where all of our information was for COVID. One of the things we will show is that those are all still down here, but right now our highlight here is our bond information. And so one of the things the PR team, Teresa and her team, have done a beautiful job is putting together some factual information with these tabs over here, created some wonderful information about Higley with some fast facts, all factual with additional information. So what that you can see here, we have a lot of information about this with background information. You'll notice too that we have road shows coming up, and one of the things that we'll be doing is also creating a video version of the road show. So if you can't road show with us, what is shared at the road show will be videoed in here as well. But again, you'll notice that anything you'd want to know, we have tried to capture everything here on this website. And so her team, Teresa and her team, have done a really nice job. And again, it is right home on our website, right there in that middle section. If you want just the one-page fact sheet, they did a beautiful job getting a lot of information on that. We will send, board members will send you invites to those roadshows. If you're able to join us, great. If not, you'll at least have them on your calendar so that you know when they are. But again, there's lots of information here for anyone who would like to look at that.
Could there be a roadshow after the ballots go out? Because the ballots go out, I think, on October 6th. Sorry for not asking this beforehand. I've just realized that the ballots go out on the 6th, so some people may not even be aware we're putting a bond on until they get their ballot. So is there any way you could think about possibly doing a roadshow after that bond, that they get the physical piece of paper in the mail? That doesn't have to be answered.
We can certainly look into that. Let me translate. So the bond roadshow dates, as Dr. Foley went over, right now, there hasn't been much requests for information to the district office, at least not of what has filtered down to administration. But if there is that large request, we can certainly look at bringing another roadshow date after that ballot is published in that October timeframe.
I think that just might be just realizing that the ballot didn't go out until October 6th. And I only realized it right now as I'm sitting here, and that all of those road shows. So a lot of parents, a lot of community members may not even realize until, they get back from that fall break, because we do have that 2-week fall break that I believe falls right in that same time frame, they may not even realize that there's going to be a bond until they get back from fall break and open up the mail and realize, hey, there's a bond.
So the intention of the September roadshow dates is this is an all mail-in election. So as soon as they get that back, there's no going to the voter pamphlets. Typically in an all mail-in election, once you get the voter pamphlet, you're going to vote. So the intention was to get out there early, prior to those voters receiving that mail-in election pamphlet, and really get the information out to those community members, staff, the individuals that we have not been able to reach, at least give them an opportunity to hear what our proposal includes. Again, our website is fully active and we're constantly adding information to that website. But these 3 dates there, myself and I believe Dr. Foley and Dr. Fowler will be there, and we'll have a informational PowerPoint and we'll be taking questions. Again, we'll answer as factual and as neutral as we can. But those are the dates in which we have established right now. But yeah, we will look into whether we do get an increase of questions and concern. We will look at adding an October election.
Thank you.
Just real fast, I think to her point, though, you might not get the questions until after, because there's going to be people that don't even look at it or realize or pay attention. You'll have the half that send it in right away, and then you'll have the other half that are like, what is this? So it's just something that I think you might not get the questions beforehand to know.
Yeah.
But just a thought.
Yeah, we'll definitely look at adding that October, an additional roadshow date.
Can you still watch or view website traffic? So after ballots, can you click in there and see, like, all of a sudden there's a bunch of hits to the website, and that might be like, okay, we're getting more interest, and maybe we need to start considering, I don't know, that's how you do your job, but.
And yes, we can be monitoring that. And to the point too, you had asked about, can we make sure that we put the information, and we also identified when we started talking, you can't see it on my screen yet, but in that first one, it says bond presentations. It talks about the summarized packet and our reviews, and it has the videos of us talking about it as well. There we go. This was something you had talked about at our previous meeting, is can we be sure to have this information there? And we do also have it here too. And yes, we can monitor it. But I hear the thought and think it's a good idea about potentially adding that date, which we can, of course, easily add it. We will also record what the road show is about so that we can put it here as well, so that if you couldn't attend, even if we add an additional date and couldn't attend but wanted to know, you could get the same information.
Dr. Foley, on that, the one-page fact sheet, is that going to be a mailer out to the community of Higley?
If the PAC helps support it, because we can't fund it because of, we'll be using, as long as the PAC funds it.
The PAC?
So, we'll have to
we'll
work with
talk
the
to
PAC.
them.
We'll have to talk with them about helping, provide those that would be an event too that people could pick up, so that we're not making the copies and trying to influence the election. So we're trying to, how do we get the word out within the realm of how we can legally get the word out?
Right, and I always bring up my little trilogy friends to make sure that
They are, and we have the name of the individual. One of the things is they may not want to come to us, but they like for us to share the information. So we've been in consultation with who we need to talk to.
That's a great idea. I know they've always been very supportive of us in other ways, so I think that's a great, yes, they vote.
One note on that fact sheet, Board Member Kaler, is that all employees will have that as either part of their welcome back, or I know principals have talked about being able to hand that out, and so we have made that available to them. So a few other dates, like you mentioned, Vice President Wilson, the October 6th is the ballots ready for mailing. The last day to register to vote is October 4th. And again, this is an all mail-in election. After October 6th, the district will be hosting a election drop box. So if you were to drop off your ballot, it will be up in the front office. And then the dates of October 25th through November 2nd, the district will also be a host for replacement ballots. So if you were to lose your ballot in the mail, or never received a ballot, or got eaten by a dog, or your dog ate your ballot, we would be able to replace that ballot here. And then, of course, November 2nd is Election Day. So after that, all board members will receive election results from the Maricopa County Elections Office, as well as district administration, and that will be.
Dr. Foley, in our front offices, are there voter registration forms still? I know at one point that we used to carry for new residents of our area. I know that obviously north of our district is growing and a lot of changing addresses. So I know that having those voter registrations maybe in that front office area of those schools might be helpful because those tend to be the people who need to vote.
Thank you for that reminder, so we can look into it.
Yeah, and maybe have some here as well at the district office when people are registering their kiddos coming in possibly the next couple weeks. It might just be a good way to get them that information that they might need. Thank you.
And then lastly, there's been one pro-political action committee identified, and there's no con committees out there, but their information is up here if you're interested in being a part of that committee. And that is all I have.
Does anyone have any questions for our 18th bond update? We should really have counted. That's pretty funny on how many bond updates we've had. President Reese, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm all good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. All right, we have some action items that we need to attend to. Item 8.1. I move that we approve the August payment of the longevity pay for the 2020-2021 school year in the amount listed for the years of service totaling $15,750.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Did I get everybody's eye? Tiffany? Okay. That carries 5-0. Moving on to 8.2. I move that the governing board ratifies the 2021-2022 thank you, of understanding between Higley Unified School District and Higley Education Association.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. 9.1, any future agenda items? We have a little list going, but we can always add more. Are we all set? Board Member Anderson? No?
I'll email.
Okay. All right. And then 10.1 is our governing board initiatives that we've always had. We can keep that. And then 11.1, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Good night, everyone.
And good luck on the first day of school.
Yay!